May 22, 1945. 10:47 a.m. Hill 95, southern Okinawa. The M4 Sherman grinds forward through mud that was coral dust yesterday before the rain turned everything into paste. Inside Tank Number 90 of Company C, 713th Armored Flamethrower Tank Battalion, Staff Sergeant James Riley watches the ridgeline through his periscope. 4 months ago, his tank was a standard Sherman medium tank at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. Then Navy Seabees gutted it, removed the 75mm gun, installed a flame weapon where the main armament used to be, packed 4 fuel tanks into the hull, 290 gallons of gasoline mixed with napalm gel. Now it's the most powerful close assault weapon in the Pacific Theater. It's also a mobile bomb. Contact front, his gunner reports. Cave entrance, 11 o'clock, 200 yards. Riley keys the intercom. Driver, advance to 80 yards. Gunner, prepare to engage. The Sherman lurches forward. 72 seconds of fuel remain in the system. 80-yard maximum effective range with thickened fuel. The math is simple. Through the vision slit, Riley spots the cave, a dark puncture in the coral ridgeline, reinforced with logs and sandbags. Artillery hasn't touched it. Tank guns can't reach inside. Infantry tried yesterday. 3 Marines didn't come back. This is what flame tanks are for. Range 80. Fire. The gunner triggers the igniter. Compressed carbon dioxide forces napalm through the flame gun at 1.9 gallons per second. The gasoline electric ignition system creates spark. A river of fire erupts from the gun tube. 80 yards of burning gel arcs through the air, splashes against the cave entrance, flows inside like liquid death. The flame combustion near the entrance creates temperatures exceeding 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. But it's not the heat that kills most defenders. It's the carbon monoxide. The fire sucks oxygen from the cave, suffocates anyone who survives the initial blast. This is the weapon that's killed 4,800 Japanese defenders on Okinawa. The weapon infantry companies pray for. The weapon that can reach enemies no artillery shell or tank round can touch. Riley watches the flame stream die. 2 seconds of fuel expended, 70 seconds remain. Then he hears it, the distinctive crack of a Japanese Type 1 47mm anti-tank gun. Hidden position. 50 yards left of the cave. The Japanese learned months ago, flame tanks are priority targets. Kill them before they kill you. The shell punches through the Sherman's hull with a sound like a sledgehammer hitting sheet metal. The armor-piercing round penetrates near the right sponson, near the fuel tanks. For exactly 1.3 seconds, nothing happens. Then 290 gallons of napalm-thickened gasoline. The weapon that made this Sherman the most feared tank on Okinawa ignites inside the crew compartment. The fireball that erupts from the hatches is visible to infantry 300 yards away. Riley and his loader escape through the commander's hatch. Both are burning. Second-degree burns across 40% of their bodies. The driver never makes it out. The gunner emerges 4 seconds later engulfed in flames. He dies 3 hours later at the aid station. The bow gunner, trapped in the front hull with no escape route, dies in the tank. 3 dead, 2 wounded. One more statistic in the 713th Tank Battalion's casualty reports. What made the flamethrower tank the most powerful weapon on Okinawa also made it the most dangerous. And the crews who wielded fire were about to learn they couldn't always control it. January 15th, 1943. Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands, private first class. Anthony Martinez crouches behind a fallen palm tree watching the Japanese bunker that's killed 6 men from his rifle company in the past 2 days. The bunker is a masterpiece of defensive engineering. Coconut logs layered 4 deep. 3 feet of coral sand packed on top. Firing slit barely 6 inches wide. Machine gun inside has perfect field of fire across the only approach route. Artillery hasn't touched it. Shells either overshoot or impact harmlessly against the log walls. Tank guns can't hit that narrow firing slit. Infantry assaults get slaughtered in the open ground. This is the nightmare American forces face across the Pacific. An enemy that digs in, fortifies, and forces attackers to come to them through killing zones. Then Martinez sees something he's never seen before. A soldier approaches from the rear carrying what looks like a bulky backpack connected to a long nozzle. 2 other Marines cover him with rifles. When he's 40 yards from the bunker, he raises the nozzle. A stream of liquid fire erupts from the weapon, not flame like from a match or lighter. This is different. Thicker, more viscous. It arcs through the air like a liquid projectile, splashes against the bunker's firing slit, flows inside. The screaming begins immediately. 3 Japanese soldiers stumble from the bunker's rear entrance, uniforms burning. They collapse after 10 yards. The bunker that resisted everything else falls in 30 seconds. Martinez is watching the M1A1 portable flamethrower, the Chemical Warfare Service's solution to fortified defenses. It's humanity's oldest weapon, updated for industrial warfare. The technology is straightforward. 4 gallons of fuel in 2 cylinders pressurized by compressed hydrogen, ignited by an electrical system projected through a nozzle. Range, 50 to 60 yards with thickened fuel. Duration, 10 seconds total, usually fired in 2-second bursts. Weight, 72 pounds when full. It's devastating against bunkers, pillboxes, and cave defenses. The burning fuel penetrates openings that shells can't reach. The heat ignites everything combustible. Most critically, the fire creates carbon monoxide concentrations that suffocate defenders who survive the initial flames. Post-attack inspections across the Pacific consistently find the same ratio. 4 out of 5 flamethrower casualties die from carbon monoxide asphyxiation, not burns. But the M1A1 has a fatal weakness. Corporal Richard Hayes learned it the hard way on Bougainville 3 months later. He volunteered for flamethrower duty because his rifle company needed someone willing to carry the weapon. The training took 2 days. The first combat mission took his life. Japanese defenders spotted him approaching their position. The 72-pound backpack made him slow. The fuel tanks made him visible. When he triggered the igniter, the flame jet announced his exact location to every enemy soldier within 200 yards. The Japanese machine gunner adjusted his aim by 6 inches, fired a 3-round burst. Hayes died before the medical corpsman reached him. The flamethrower tanks didn't ignite. Despite popular belief, they rarely explode when punctured by small arms fire. But Hayes didn't need the fuel to kill him. The machine gun did that. The Chemical Warfare Service report is clinical. Flamethrower operators were very vulnerable to Japanese small arms fire due to the weight of the equipment and the visibility of the location once the flamethrower was ignited. By late summer 1943, Marine and Army units across the Pacific are improvising solutions. If flamethrower operators are too vulnerable on foot, put them inside tanks. New Caledonia, August 1943. The 754th Tank Battalion receives M3A1 light tanks and a desperate request from the WWII Corps. Find a way to mount portable flamethrowers on armored vehicles. The first attempts fail. The M3A1's turret is too cramped to operate a flamethrower through the pistol ports. The weapon needs exterior mounting, which means modifications the battalion isn't authorized to make, but the fighting on New Georgia against Japanese bunker defenses makes the need urgent. Engineers experiment. They mount the M1A1 flamethrower on the light tank's hull, connecting it to operate from inside. It's crude. It's unauthorized. It works. The 754th Tank Battalion arrives on Bougainville with 4 modified flame tanks in January 1944. The Marines call them Satans, a nickname that captures both their power and the unease they inspire. January 30th, 1944, the Hornet's Nest defensive position along the Tarokana River. Company A, 754th Tank Battalion, sends its Satan flame tanks forward. The tanks can't find targets once crews close the hatches. Visibility is terrible. The Japanese bunkers are camouflaged. Staff Sergeant Jesse Downey of the 132nd Infantry watches the problem develop. The flame tanks are powerful but blind. Without infantry guidance, they're wasting fuel on empty jungle. Downey makes a decision that will earn him the Medal of Honor. He climbs onto the lead Saipan tank, exposes himself to enemy fire, and begins directing the crew. The tank crew hands him a Thompson submachine gun loaded with tracer ammunition. Downey fires tracers at bunker positions, marking targets the flame tank can engage. The tactic works. The Saipan tanks systematically burn out 13 bunkers in 2 hours. Downey takes 2 hits. The second round pierces his chest, a serious wound that will require months of recovery. But he stays on the tank, directing fire until the position falls. The Saipans proved the concept. Flamethrowers on armored vehicles combine devastating firepower with crew protection. Infantry gets the close assault weapon they desperately need. Tank crews get a new mission. But the fuel that makes them powerful also makes them targets. The Japanese are about to learn to identify flame tanks by sight and make them priority kills. The weapon that changed everything was about to change the men who wielded it. June 15, 1944, 8:43 a.m., Saipan, Mariana Islands. First Lieutenant Alfred Zavala, commander of Saipan flame tank D-21 Dusty, watches the beach through his periscope as his Company D 4th Marine Tank Battalion rolls off the landing craft. His M3A1 light tank carries a modified M1A1 portable flamethrower, mounted for combat operations. 2 M5A1 light tanks escort him. The flame tank is too valuable to risk losing to Japanese infantry assault. This is the first major test of flame tank doctrine. The 2nd and 4th Marine Tank Battalions each have a 4-tank Saipan platoon. Each Marine regiment gets 1 Saipan platoon for support. The theory seems solid. The reality is about to get complicated. June 17th, inland from the beaches. The 4th Marine Tank Battalion encounters what will become the defining tactical problem of the Pacific War. A Japanese cave defense carved into Saipan's coral and limestone hills. Artillery has pounded the position for 2 hours. The cave is undamaged. Infantry assaults stall under machine gun fire from the cave entrance. Tank guns fire high explosive shells directly into the opening. The rounds detonate inside, but the defenders survive in deep chambers. Zavala's Dusty advances to 60 yards. The Japanese defenders can see him coming. His flame tank looks different from standard light tanks. The modified flame apparatus is visible, the fuel connections obvious to anyone who knows what to look for. A Japanese soldier fires a rifle grenade. It impacts the tank's frontal armor, ricochets off. No penetration. The light tank's armor holds. Zavala orders fire. The portable flamethrower mechanism triggers. 2 seconds of burning napalm gel streams into the cave entrance. Temperature spikes above 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. The fuel splashes against the cave walls, flows into side chambers, ignites everything it touches. More importantly, it consumes oxygen. Carbon monoxide builds to lethal concentrations within seconds. 20 seconds after the flame attack, Japanese soldiers stumble from a secondary cave entrance 200 yards away. They collapse before reaching cover, carbon monoxide poisoning. The infantry company moves in, secures the position. 12 Japanese defenders dead inside the cave. Only 2 show burn injuries. The others, asphyxiated. This is what the Saipan tanks do. This is why infantry companies want them. But there's a cost the after-action reports don't fully capture. By June 25th, Dusty and its sister Saipan tanks have been in continuous combat for 10 days. Each tank consumes an average of 55 gallons of flamethrower fuel per day. The 4th Marine Tank Battalion burns through 36,000 gallons during the Saipan campaign. The intensive use reveals problems. The flame system, built from modified portable flamethrowers never designed for sustained combat operations. Ignition systems fail, fuel lines crack, pressure regulators malfunction. Tank crews spend hours each night performing field maintenance that keeps the Saipans operational. When parts break that can't be field repaired, crews cannibalize components from other tanks. By the campaign's end, one Saipan is down for parts, its flame system stripped to keep 3 others running. Then there's the psychological weight. Corporal Eddie Chen, loader on Saipan Tank D-23, writes to his family on July 2nd, "The Marines love us. When we roll up, they cheer. They know we can clear positions nothing else can touch. But the Japs know us too now. They've learned what we look like, and they shoot at us different, more focused, like they really want us dead." Chen is describing a shift in Japanese defensive tactics that will define flame tank operations for the rest of the war. The Japanese military circulates identification guides showing how to recognize flame tanks, different hull configurations, modified gun mantlets, visible fuel systems. Orders go to anti-tank gun crews. Flame tanks are priority targets. If you see one, engage immediately. The logic is sound. Flame tanks enable infantry advances, destroy them, and the infantry stalls. Plus, flame tanks carry hundreds of gallons of volatile fuel. A penetrating hit near the fuel system might trigger secondary explosion, catastrophic kill. July 24, 1944, neighboring Tinian Island. The 4th Marine Tank Battalion lands with its Saipan platoons for another campaign. The terrain on Tinian favors tank operations more than Saipan. Flatter, fewer cliffs, better approaches. The Saipans see extensive combat use. They're devastatingly effective. They also start breaking down. The M3A1 light tank, excellent for reconnaissance and infantry support, wasn't designed for the sustained, intensive combat role flame tanks require. Engines overheat. Transmissions wear out. Suspension systems fail under the constant stress. The battalion loses one Saipan to a mine on Tinian. The explosion ruptures the fuel tanks, but the napalm mixture doesn't ignite. The crew evacuates safely, but the tank is destroyed and there's no replacement. By campaign's end, the 4th Marine Tank Battalion is cannibalizing multiple tanks to keep a handful of Saipans operational. Parts shortage becomes critical. Crews work through the night performing maintenance that should require depot-level facilities. But the effectiveness reports keep emphasizing one truth. When flame tanks work, they work brilliantly. After Action Report, 4th Marine Tank Battalion, August 1944. The flamethrower tank, despite maintenance challenges, proved essential for reducing fortified cave defenses. Recommended improvements: more robust flame systems, better crew training, and most critically, mount flamethrowers on medium tanks with more armor protection and greater fuel capacity. The crews who survived Saipan and Tinian understand something the reports don't quite capture. They're carrying the most powerful close assault weapon in the Pacific. Infantry formations consider them miracle workers. Commanders want more of them. But inside those tanks, sealed in with 72 pounds of pressurized flamethrower fuel, men are calculating different mathematics. Every approach to a Japanese position is an approach toward enemies who've learned to prioritize flame tanks. Every shot fired announces exactly where they are. Every day in combat is a day carrying fuel that could cook them alive if the armor fails. The Saipan tanks proved flame tanks work. What they also proved, the weapon that mastered fire carried inherent risks that no amount of armor could completely eliminate. By fall 1944, engineers in Hawaii are designing the next generation. Bigger tanks, more fuel, longer range, 300% more fuel capacity than the Saipans, which means 300% more risk. The crews who would operate them didn't know it yet, but they were about to learn an ancient lesson. Fire doesn't respect its masters. December 1944. Schofield Barracks, Oahu, Hawaii. Colonel George F. Unmacht's Pacific Ocean Area's Chemical Warfare Service Workshop is converting Sherman tanks into weapons that will redefine close-quarters combat. The POA CWS H-1 Flamethrower system represents everything learned from 18 months of Pacific combat. It's not a portable flamethrower bolted onto a tank. It's a purpose-designed main armament system that replaces the Sherman's 75mm gun entirely. The specifications tell the story: 290 gallons of fuel stored in 4 tanks inside the hull. 80-yard range with thickened napalm fuel, 6% napalm mixed with gasoline. Discharge rate of 1.9 gallons per second. Maximum duration, 150 seconds of continuous fire. For comparison, the portable M1A1 flamethrower carries 4 gallons and fires for 10 seconds total. The Saipan flame tanks, 20 to 30 seconds. The POA CWS H-1 can fire for 2.5 minutes without refueling. It's the most powerful man-portable flame weapon ever built. Captain J.P. Bolanowski, who directs much of the construction, watches Navy Seabees gut another Sherman tank on December 20th. They're building these as fast as they can. The invasion of Iwo Jima is 8 weeks away, and Marine commanders want flame tanks in overwhelming numbers. The technical challenges are substantial. 4 fuel tanks must fit inside a Sherman hull already packed with ammunition, crew stations, and mechanical systems. The flame gun must seal into the main gun mount without compromising the turret's integrity. The ignition system must be absolutely reliable. A misfire during combat could leave a crew exposed with no weapon. Most critically, the fuel tanks must survive combat damage without turning the Sherman into a fireball. The engineers solve it with placement and design. Fuel tanks in the hull sponsons protected by the Sherman's sloped armor. Gasoline-electric ignition system with redundant safeties. Compressed carbon dioxide propulsion, no explosive propellant, just gas pressure forcing napalm through the flame gun. On paper, it's as safe as carrying 290 gallons of napalm inside a steel box can possibly be. The first converted tanks arrive at Marine Tank Battalions on Christmas Day, 1944. The last conversion finishes January 22, 1945. 54 Sherman flame tanks for the invasion of Iwo Jima. The 4th and 5th Marine Tank Battalions split them. 4 POA CWS H-1 main armament flame tanks per battalion, plus varying numbers of auxiliary E-45 bow-mounted systems. The crews training on the new tanks are impressed and uneasy. The power is undeniable. Demonstration shoots show the H-1 can blanket an area the size of a basketball court in burning napalm from 80 yards away. The range means flame tanks can engage from positions that keep them outside Japanese close assault range. The fuel capacity means they can support extended operations without constant refueling. But the sheer volume of fuel changes the equation. Corporal James Walsh, gunner on an H-1 equipped Sherman, talks to his crew on January 15, 1945. Saipan tanks carried what, 70 pounds of fuel? This thing has 290 gallons, that's, he does the math, over 1,900 pounds of napalm inside the tank with us. His tank commander responds. And we've got the best armor and the longest range. Japanese guns have to penetrate 2 inches of frontal armor. The light tanks only had 1.5 inches maximum. We're safer. Walsh nods, but he's thinking about what happens if safer isn't safe enough. February 19, 1945, D-Day, Iwo Jima. The volcanic island is 8 square miles of tactical nightmare. Japanese forces under Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi have spent 8 months creating the most sophisticated defense system in the Pacific War. 11 miles of tunnels connecting 1,500 rooms, 700 pillboxes, hundreds of caves and bunkers, all mutually supporting, all fortified to withstand bombardment. This is exactly the scenario flame tanks were designed for. The 5th Marine Tank Battalion lands with its 4 POA CWS H-1 flame tanks. They go into action within hours. The volcanic sand of Iwo Jima creates unexpected problems. Tanks sink into the ash, losing mobility. But once positioned, the H-1 flame tanks prove their worth immediately. Tank Co-Ed from Company C, 4th Marine Tank Battalion, engages a fortified pillbox on February 22nd. The Japanese position has withstood 3 days of artillery bombardment and multiple infantry assaults. Direct fire from 75mm tank guns penetrated the firing slits but didn't eliminate the defenders. Co-Ed approaches to 70 yards, outside effective range of Japanese close assault weapons but well within H-1 range. The gunner triggers a 3-second burst. 80 yards of flame arcs through the air, splashes into the pillbox aperture, floods the interior. The pillbox goes silent. Infantry secures it 10 minutes later. 17 Japanese defenders dead inside, all from carbon monoxide asphyxiation. This scene repeats across Iwo Jima for 5 weeks. The H-1 flame tanks become the primary weapon for reducing fortified positions. Daily fuel consumption, 5,000 to 10,000 gallons of thickened napalm across all flame tanks in operation. The 5th Marine Tank Battalion After-Action Report, March 27, 1945. The flame tank performed splendidly and constantly overcame resistance which all other weapons had failed to silence. The commander of the 28th Marines calls the flame tanks the best single weapon of the operation. The 9th Marines describes the mechanized flamethrower as the most powerful weapon at their disposal. The V Corps commander identifies it as the only effective means of attacking numerous pillboxes, bunkers, and fortified caves. But alongside these effectiveness reports runs a darker narrative. The E-45 auxiliary flamethrower, a smaller system mounted in the bow machine gun position, develops a reputation among crews as a death trap. Unlike the main armament H-1, the E-45 requires removing the bow machine gun, eliminating defensive capability. Its range is shorter, forcing tanks closer to Japanese positions. And critically, crew perception of its safety is dismal. 5th Marine Tank Battalion After-Action Report, March 1945. The short range of the small E-45 flamethrower rendered it next to useless. The E-45 flamethrower has too little range, takes too long to refuel, and does not have sufficient duration of fire. Tanks fitted with the auxiliary flamethrowers developed the reputation of being death traps, as some Marine tankers felt that mine and artillery damage was amplified by flamethrower fuel fires. The perception matters as much as reality. Whether auxiliary flamethrowers actually increased casualties is debatable. The data is limited, the sample size small. But crews believed it, and belief shapes behavior. Some tank commanders quietly decline auxiliary flamethrower installation. Others accept it but operate with extreme caution, restricting their tactical options to minimize risk. A few battalions install them, use them once or twice, then remove them. The psychological burden is real. Knowing you're carrying volatile fuel in combat creates constant low-grade stress. Every approaching enemy soldier with a satchel charge, every mortar round landing nearby, every mine buried in the road ahead. Each represents potential catastrophic failure of the one system crews can't escape. The fuel tanks. By March 1945, as Iwo Jima operations wind down, Marine Tank Battalions submit recommendations for future operations. The consensus is clear. Main armament flamethrowers like the H-1 are essential and should be standard equipment. Auxiliary systems should be eliminated unless substantially improved. The 5th Marine Tank Battalion recommendation. A flame tank section of at least 9 flame tanks should be assigned to each battalion. The E-45 should be dropped, or if an auxiliary flamethrower remains as standard equipment, it should be modified to permit the bow machine gun to remain. Nobody's questioning whether flame tanks are necessary. They're questioning whether crews can psychologically sustain operations while carrying hundreds of gallons of fuel that might kill them. The next test will answer that question definitively. Okinawa, the largest amphibious assault of the Pacific War, the longest sustained ground combat, and the first time an entire battalion would be equipped solely with flame tanks. The 713th Tank Battalion, 54 Shermans, 54 POA CWS H1 systems, each carrying 290 gallons of napalm. They would prove flame tanks could win battles. They would also prove fire doesn't always distinguish between target and operator. April 19, 1945, Southern Okinawa, 0630 hours. The 713th Armored Flamethrower Tank Battalion rolls into combat as the first and only complete flame tank unit in U.S. Army history. Every single tank in the battalion carries the POA CWS H1 main armament flamethrower system. No standard gun tanks, no fallback. Just 54 Shermans loaded with napalm supporting the 10th Army's push through the most heavily fortified terrain in the Pacific. Southern Okinawa is a defender's paradise and an attacker's nightmare. Coral ridges rise in layers, each one fortified. Burial vaults carved into hillsides provide ready-made defensive positions. Dense vegetation conceals approaches. The Japanese 32nd Army has spent months preparing interlocking fields of fire, hidden artillery positions, and cave systems that can withstand sustained bombardment. This is precisely the environment flame tanks were designed to dominate. Company A, 713th Tank Battalion, supports the 7th Infantry Division. Company B supports the 1st Marine Division. Company C supports the 77th Infantry Division. Each company operates independently, attached to infantry units that desperately need their capability. The tactics evolve quickly. Infantry and tankers develop what they call corkscrew and blowtorch, a systematic approach to grinding through defensive lines. Riflemen suppress Japanese positions. Standard gun tanks crack open fortifications with high explosive rounds. Flame tanks follow up, flooding bunkers and caves with napalm. The effectiveness is undeniable. April 24, 1945. Company C flame tank engages a cave defense that's held up the 77th Division for 2 days. Artillery bombardment, naval gunfire, direct tank fire. Nothing's worked. Infantry casualties mount with each assault. The flame tank advances to 75 yards. Fires a 4-second burst. Napalm streams into the cave entrance, flows through the tunnel system, ignites everything combustible. Creates lethal carbon monoxide concentrations throughout the complex. 40 Japanese defenders die without the infantry losing another man. May 8, 1945. Company B supports 1st Marine Division attacks north of Shuri. The Japanese headquarters under Shuri Castle represents the linchpin of the defense. 3 ridgelines protect the approach, each one fortified with interlocking bunkers and artillery positions. Flame tanks burn out 17 bunker complexes in 6 hours. Marines advance behind the flame attacks, securing positions that resisted conventional weapons for days. The infantry reports are euphoric. After-action statements consistently emphasize the same points. Flame tanks enable advances that would otherwise stall. Infantry will move forward with flame tanks when they won't advance behind standard tanks. The psychological impact on both sides is enormous. American troops feel invincible with flame support. Japanese defenders abandon positions rather than face the flames. By mid-May 1945, the 713th Tank Battalion burns 49,000 gallons of fuel in flame attacks. Total campaign consumption will reach 250 gallons, nearly 200,000 gallons of napalm discharged in 630 flame sorties over 3 months. But the combat effectiveness comes at a cost the statistics only partially capture. May 15, 1945. The 701th Tank Battalion, a standard tank unit with auxiliary E-45 flamethrowers installed on some vehicles. experiences what tankers fear most. A Sherman with an E-45 auxiliary system advances toward a Japanese position. Japanese artillery observers track its movement. A 47mm anti-tank gun fires from concealed position. The shell penetrates the Sherman's hull near the bow where the auxiliary flamethrower fuel tanks are located. The fuel explodes. 3 crew members die instantly. 2 survive with severe burns. The tank is destroyed beyond salvage. 4 days later, another 711th Tank Battalion Sherman hits a mine. The explosion ruptures the auxiliary flamethrower fuel system. The tank erupts in flames. Casualties unknown. The after-action report lists only multiple wounded, vehicle destroyed. The news spreads through Army tank battalions on Okinawa within hours. The 711th Tank Battalion immediately removes all auxiliary flamethrowers from its vehicles. Other units follow. Within a week, the decision reaches 10th Army headquarters. The Army's Wielded Corps issues formal guidance. The range on the auxiliary flame tank was too short, the fuel capacity too small, and crews were afraid of it because of the increased fire hazard. The auxiliary flamethrower program effectively ends. Future flame tank development will focus exclusively on main armament, systems with better range and crew protection. But the 713th Tank Battalion, equipped entirely with main armament H-1 systems, continues operations and continues taking casualties. The losses accumulate gradually. A tank hit by anti-tank fire here, a mine strike there. Artillery landing close enough to penetrate. Each incident tests whether the fuel systems survive combat damage. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. The battalion maintains meticulous records. By the end of the Okinawa campaign, June 23, 1945, the accounting is complete. 7 men killed, 112 wounded or missing. 41 of 54 flame tanks knocked out during the fighting. 26 repaired and returned to service. 15 lost beyond repair. Primary causes of tank losses: anti-tank guns, 8 tanks, mines, 8 tanks, artillery fire, mechanical failures, 1 tank written off after falling into a shell hole during landing and suffering saltwater damage. Against these losses, the battalion is credited with killing approximately 4,800 Japanese troops. Infantry units supported by the 713th describe the flame tanks as indispensable battle-winning weapons. The mathematics are brutal but clear. The 713th Tank Battalion achieved a kill ratio of 685 to 1. 4,800 enemy killed for 7 friendly killed. By any measure of combat effectiveness, these are extraordinary numbers. But for the men inside those tanks, statistics provide no comfort. Sergeant Michael Torres, tank commander with Company A, writes home on May 28th. Every time we roll toward a Japanese position, I'm thinking about the 290 gallons behind me. We're the best weapon the infantry has. We save lives. American lives. That's what we do. That's our job. But we do it carrying enough fuel to burn for 2 minutes straight. And the Japanese know what we are now. They see us coming. They concentrate fire. We're priority targets. The infantry loves us. The Japanese want us dead. And we're sitting on top of a bomb every single day. Torres survives Okinawa. Many don't. The final casualty report for flame tank operations across the 10th Army shows patterns that confirm crews' worst fears. Flame tanks suffer higher casualty rates than standard tanks when hit by anti-tank weapons or mines. The fuel systems, despite engineering protections, remain vulnerable to catastrophic failure. The Army Observer Group report, July 1945, concludes, "The consensus of opinion of the using arm is that the armored flamethrower is a most valuable weapon, as it will kill the enemy or cause him to leave positions that no other weapon can reach. It is quite a morale builder to our own infantry. This was proven on numerous occasions as our infantry would move forward with the flame tank but not with standard tanks." The same report recommends, In the future, one company in each tank battalion attached to infantry divisions should be equipped with flame tanks. Then adds the critical caveat: only main armament flamethrower types. Auxiliary systems should not be employed due to crew concerns about fire hazard affecting combat effectiveness. By August 1945, as planning intensifies for the invasion of Japan, the doctrine is established. Flame tanks are essential. Crews carrying 290 gallons of napalm into combat is the acceptable price. The weapon proved itself on Okinawa. It also proved something else. Fire remains humanity's most dangerous tool precisely because it doesn't distinguish between controller and controlled. The crews who wielded it saved thousands of American lives. They paid for that capability by living every day with the knowledge that their most powerful weapon was also their greatest vulnerability. When Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945, the invasion of the home islands was cancelled. The 713th Tank Battalion never had to conduct the operations it trained for, fighting through Japanese cities, reducing fortifications on Kyushu, burning out defenses where millions might have died. The battalion's survivors returned home carrying experiences that didn't fit easily into victory narratives. They'd mastered fire. They'd turned it into the most effective close assault weapon in military history. And they'd learned that mastery over fire is always temporary, always conditional, always one penetrating hit away from becoming its victim. August 1945, the war ends. The flame tanks remain. The final accounting shows that flamethrower tanks accomplished everything their proponents claimed. They reduced fortified positions no other weapon could touch. They enabled infantry advances that would otherwise have stalled. They saved thousands of American lives by eliminating defensive positions with minimal friendly casualties. The effectiveness numbers support every claim. The 713th Tank Battalion alone is credited with 4,800 enemy killed. Infantry divisions supported by flame tanks consistently report faster advances, lower casualties, and higher morale than divisions without flame support. But the crews who operated them understand a truth the statistics don't fully capture. The weapon that made them powerful also made them vulnerable in ways conventional tanks never experienced. Standard Sherman tank crews face artillery, anti-tank guns, mines, and infantry assault. Flame tank crews face all of those plus the constant knowledge that their vehicle contains 290 gallons of napalm. Every approach to enemy positions is an approach by a priority target. Every hit that penetrates carries risk of fuel ignition. Every mine strike might rupture fuel tanks. The psychological burden matters. Post-war interviews with flame tank crews consistently reveal higher stress levels than standard tank crews. The constant awareness of the fuel creates what psychologists would later recognize as chronic stress response. Never quite relaxed, always calculating risks, hyper-vigilant about threats. Some crews handled it better than others. Some developed superstitions, rituals, coping mechanisms. Some simply endured. A few broke under the strain. The Army recognized the problem enough to issue that critical guidance in August 1945. Remove auxiliary flamethrowers due to crew concerns about fire hazard. Not because the auxiliary systems were demonstrably more dangerous than main armament types. The data didn't clearly show that. But because crews believed they were more dangerous and belief affects performance. The irony is profound. The weapon designed to make infantry safer by reducing fortified positions created a different kind of danger for the crews who operated it. In saving lives, it put other lives at risk in unique ways. Flame tanks would continue serving after World War II. They fought in Korea, where the POA CWS H-1 systems again proved devastatingly effective against bunker complexes and cave defenses. Modified versions served into the 1950s. The basic concept, mount powerful flamethrower on armored vehicle, remained sound. But the fundamental bargain never changed. Crews who wielded fire accepted the risk of becoming its victims. The ancient Greeks understood something about fire that modern technology doesn't alter. Prometheus brought fire to humanity and was punished eternally for it. The myth captures a truth about fire's dual nature. It's the tool that built civilization and the force that burns it down. Controlled and controller, weapon and threat. The flamethrower tank crews of World War II learned that lesson in volcanic caves and coral ridges across the Pacific. They learned it in the clicking of their Geiger counters as they watched napalm streams arc through tropical air. They learned it in the mathematics of fuel consumption. 10 seconds, 70 seconds, 150 seconds of fire. They learned it in the moment between hearing an anti-tank gun fire and wondering if this is the hit that ignites 290 gallons of napalm. They mastered fire. They weaponized it. They turned it into a force that could reach enemies no artillery shell could touch, that could save American lives by the thousands, that could turn the tide of battles. But fire doesn't recognize masters, it only recognizes fuel. And the crews who commanded flame tanks discovered they could never stop being both, the wielder of fire and its potential victim. Private Anthony Martinez survived Guadalcanal. He volunteered for flamethrower duty 3 more times in subsequent campaigns. In a letter home dated July 1945, he wrote, "Everyone asks if I'm scared carrying the flamethrower. Wrong question. Of course I'm scared. The right question is, am I more scared of failing my buddies by not using the weapon we need, or of the weapon itself? And the answer is, the weapon keeps us alive, even if it might kill me. That's the deal." That was always the deal. From the first portable flamethrower on Guadalcanal to the last H-1 flame tank on Okinawa. Power for vulnerability, effectiveness for risk. The ability to save lives by wielding the one weapon that could also consume its operator. The flame tank crews of World War II accepted that deal. They carried 290 gallons of napalm into combat. They burned out thousands of enemy positions. They enabled advances that shortened the war. They saved lives. 7 men of the 713th Tank Battalion died doing it. 112 were wounded. Hundreds more across other units paid similar prices. They mastered fire, and they learned that fire once unleashed respects no masters at all.